welcome. Hello, thank you for coming to this very special Doha Debate event. Now, our question for tonight for your consideration. Peace tech. Can technology unlock world peace? We thought we'd start with a little one then. Now, we've stripped things right back. We are going to take the debate tonight to its simplest form. We're focusing on the essentials: honesty, openness, and engaged conversation. The aim for the next hour or so, of course, is to get everyone thinking, but more importantly, I want you guys to speak and listen, especially if you disagree with one another. We're honored and delighted to welcome UNESCO Qatar and the UN DPPA Innovation Cell as our partners tonight. Thank you, guys. Little clap over here. Thank you. Now, we've designed the format for tonight very carefully to allow as much interaction and engagement as possible. This is not your average Oxford Union style of adversarial debate. This is a Doha debate, and we do things a little differently. Let me explain. After the speakers who are behind me have had their say and presented their solutions to you, I've got a few questions of my own that I will be asking them, and then it will be over to you to get involved. So as the debate goes on, have those comments, questions, and things that you just need to get off your chest ready, because there will be a time to hear from you. After we've had a long discussion, our speakers will be open to hear to what you have to say. You'll have a bit of time also to talk to one another and see where your perspectives lie. Now, I want you guys to try and find a way so that we can come to a consensus together as a group, so that when we go out to the wider world, we can put into practice what we've been preaching here. Thank you. Now, a lot of you have probably noticed the 3 bits of card that are on your seats. You've got them. Very good. Thank you for showing me. I'm glad you've got them there. Keep a hold of them. They are vital. That is going to be how you will vote in the 2 sets of votes that we have coming up on the show. I know, it's very techy. I don't know if you understand how they work, but you'll just hold one up whenever it's time to vote. We'll get to that in a moment. We'll vote a couple of times during the next hour, once after our speakers have made their cases to you, and once again after the Majlis. Feel free to change your mind. I encourage you to change your mind. If there is a thought, an idea, or perspective that rings true to you, you are more than allowed to do that. Now, we've got a Doha Debate superstar, a superhero amongst us on stage as well. And his job is basically to find harmony where others see disagreement, to find resolution where others see conflict. Dr. Govinda Clayton. He might be familiar to those of you who watch our big live debates on a regular basis. He's known as our connector. And tonight his role is going to be to try and find some common ground between our experts who, on the face of it, might think the other person is basically talking rubbish. He sat right here. Dr. Clayton, could you tell us a little bit about what you're hoping for tonight?
Sure thing. So I spend most of my life trying to think about ways in which we can resolve more extreme violent forms of conflict. So I work with governments, diplomats, and international organizations like the UN, trying to help people to understand how to design dialogue processes. But I don't think there's going to be any fighting tonight. So instead, after the speakers have had a chance to kind of test their arguments out against each other, I want to encourage them to try and come together and look for where there's maybe some meaningful consensus, so you guys and myself can learn not just where the speakers differ from each other, but also where there's some commonalities.
Thank you, Dr. Clayton. Gov. I like to call him Gov. Now, that is the general plan for the night, folks. So let me actually turn to the debate topic and the lovely people sat down behind me. Remember, their job is to persuade us of their solution, not their argument, of their solution. The question that we are answering tonight, once again, can technology unlock world peace. Our speakers will be making their cases shortly to you, and they represent a spectrum of opinions from, yes, absolutely, technology holds the key to brokering world peace, all the way to, no, technology, in fact, could be used to bring about the war that ends all wars. So, without further ado, because I've been waffling on for ages, boring you, it's time to go to our first speaker. Allison Puccioni is a world-renowned practitioner of photo intelligence. For 25 years, she's been working with the military, with governments, with industry and the media in imagery analysis. She's currently leading the satellite imagery application team at Google. Allison, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much again, Nell. Good evening, I am Allison Puccioni, and I am here to propose to you that technology can facilitate peace. More specifically, the increasing presence of and access to technology has helped to democratize information that can ultimately lead to a more equitable world. In my 25-year career, I've worked with intelligence systems that were long relegated solely to military and government gatekeepers of a very small handful of countries. These tools were built at enormous expense and used in secret to monitor strategic activity throughout the world. Over the past 2 decades, these technologies have emerged into the open, into our world. Today, we can access from our smartphones the kinds of information that, a few decades ago, was held only in the most clandestine echelons of elite intelligence agencies. We now have agency from this data. We have access to satellite imagery that comes from space. We in the research and academic communities apply this data to promote human safety, to monitor government activity and hold state actors accountable for their actions, and to better inform ourselves about the events that affect and shape our lives. Events like brinkmanship in the South China Sea, mass human displacement and migration throughout the Middle East and North Africa, purposeful manipulation of information by governments, and nuclear weapons proliferation in otherwise denied media access countries like North Korea. In the 20th century, the most avant-garde advancements in tech were being developed by and for governments, many for military purposes. But it's now the commercial sector driving technological evolution. Like rocket and space travel, machine learning associated research, space-based Earth observation, and computing technology. I have had the honor of spending this week in Doha with the United Nations Department of Policy and Peacebuilding Affairs Innovation Cell, where thought leaders within the United Nations met with academics and investigative journalists to exchange ideas about how to use satellite imaging to improve water security, behavioral insight analysis to transparently incentivize people to vaccinate their children, social media analytical tools to more accurately reflect the sentiment of the people that the United Nations serves. We must pragmatically and soberly navigate this new Wild West of informational advancement, and it is not and it will not be straightforward. But with prudence, in the right hands, in enough hands, in our hands, these newly accessible technologies can lead to more transparent research, to better informed analysis, and to the enfranchisement of a populace, us, to become a bigger part of our global narrative of peace building. Thank you.
Compelling argument there from Allison. Next, Subbu Vincent is the Director of Journalism and Media Ethics Program at the Marcella Center at Santa Clara University in the Bay Area. Now, he helped to develop internet product pipes, which I still don't know what they are, but apparently they're really important because they revolutionize and run our latest communications. Subbu, over to you.
Hi, everybody. Thank you all for being here today. Thank you especially to the DD group for actually having us over. today I'm going to argue the case that technology alone will not bring about peace. For that, let's look to our own humanity first, because human decision-making has led to most of the conflict in the world. Let me take social media. Social media platforms and the technology that underpins them was sold between 2005 and 2012, the idea that they're a force for good, that technology will connect us all, technology will bring greater good in society, that it is a force for good. The answer is the opposite. If you look at what's happened now in 2019, it's a mixed reality. Yes, it has been used as a force for good. Yes, it has helped actually mobilize people. But yes, it has also been used to spread lies, disinformation, hate speech, amplify conspiracy theory, and sow discord and divide people. That is not good. And the second thing, and the more important thing, is social media platforms are being used to interfere in elections. May I remind all of us here today that elections are important for peaceful transition of power, as you very well know, from one administration to another administration. If we interfere with the elections of another country, we're actually threatening peace. So there are fundamental issues with how social media technology, for example, has played itself out. And I have to point out on this that technology really, as design, is amoral. Amoral means lacking a moral sense. In the hands of good actors, it can be used for good. In the hands of bad actors, it will be used for bad, as we are seeing, and more. So what I ask you to think about is the difference in ethics, which we call as means and ends. Technology is a means to an end. So if we want to talk about peace, if we really want peace, the desire for peace comes from us, we have to start talking about the ends first. And on this part, I want to bring a personal story. I am a computer science engineer. I was trained as a software engineer. I trained in one of the best universities in the world. I built some software that runs on the internet even today. And then I moved to journalism and media, which helped me understand the world, interrogate the world. Never in my computer science training, undergraduate electrical engineering and master's in computer science, did we ever anticipate the use, the abuse of software technology that connects people the way it's actually happened today. And for me, it's a personal sense of pain to see how tech is used. And that's why I'm here today to argue the position again that technology alone cannot bring about peace. We need human values, and we need to look to our own humanity for answers first. Thank you.
Thank you, Subbu. Now, our final speaker is Ariel Conn. Her work covers a range of fields, including, and get this, AI safety, artificial intelligence policy, and as she puts it herself, the existential threat to humanity. I'll let Ariel explain.
Thank you. So technology is primarily developed for military prowess, for profit, or for both. And unfortunately, war is far more profitable than peace. And we only have to look at recent history to see this connection between technology and warfare. Airplane technology advanced significantly during both World War I and World War II. Computers really got started because of World War II and advanced significantly because of the Cold War. We split the atom and developed nuclear technology, and the first thing we did was build the biggest bomb the world had ever seen. Even today's beneficial technology, satellites, GPS, computers, these were all advanced during the Cold War and connected to various arms races also associated with the Cold War. And now, many people fear that we are on the brink of a new arms race, this time with artificial intelligence and lethal autonomous weapons. And not all tech is military, but that doesn't mean it can't be harmful. In many cases, as developers race to launch their project first, they neglect the potential negative side effects of the technology they're developing. And we're already seeing examples of this with problems arising with social media, with deepfakes, with algorithmic bias, with image and facial recognition software. And these technologies, when used badly, don't just hurt the people using them. We're already seeing that they can upend democratic procedures and they enable human rights violations. If we continue to develop technology as we have, war and destruction will not only guide technological advancement, it will follow in its wake.
I didn't say it was going to be easy. Thank you, Ariel. Now, before we have our first vote and we get to my set of questions, I want you guys to take just 1 minute to turn to the person sitting next to you and tell them how you're planning to vote. I don't want you to try and persuade them to change their mind or tell them why you're vociferously voting for one thing and that you're never going to change your mind otherwise. I want you just to open up the discussion. So for the next minute, just turn to the person, your neighbor, and tell them how you're going to vote. Go ahead, take a minute. All right. I think that we've had enough time there. I can see everyone getting very animated. If I can call your attention back to the front of the stage, if you can wrap up your conversations, please. There we go. Thank you very much for that. I'm really excited to see you guys are taking part. This is an interactive experience, and it would be really boring if you weren't animated and involved, so thank you for that. But now it's time for the vote. This is the first of 2 votes, remember, and I want you to grab your cards. Before you put them up, I want to remind you very briefly of the arguments and the solutions that were presented to you. So we had Allison, who was arguing for the use of peace tech and how it can be used to hopefully broker peace at some stage in the future. And she's holding the blue card. Yes, if you agree with her, you'll hold up the blue card soon. Next up, we had Subbu, and he's fighting the orange corner. He believes that technology is just a means to an end, and that if we're going to fix anything first, it should be humanity's approach, not the technology. And finally, with the yellow card, there we go, Ariel. She's not optimistic and thinks technology could actually lead to the downfall of civilization itself. Quite a lot to bear in mind. So, on the count of 3, not you guys stay where you are. On the count of 3, I would like you to hold up the card that best represents your view. 1, 2, 3. Right, that's really interesting. Are you guys watching this? Okay. You can have a look around you, but because I am the arbiter of events, because I am the master of ceremonies, I get to decide who's won. They're already going at it. Keep this for the next bit. Subbu has won the first vote. Well done, Subbu. Very interesting to see all of your perspectives. It did seem that, Allison, you had a few people kind of agreeing with your perspective, and Ariel, you too. There are pockets of consensus among us. We might actually get this thing done, guys. I'm very excited. So, before we get to Dr. Govinda Clayton, who I've seen you've been taking notes and listening very avidly, and before we get to you, I've got a few questions of my own. So I'm going to spend a few seconds just addressing our speakers to try and understand exactly where they are coming from. Allison, you mentioned a lot about technology's capacity to hurtle humanity forward. Innovation can come from anywhere, from governments, from militaries around the world and things like that. I'm from Afghanistan, where drones have been used to indiscriminately murder tens and thousands, if not hundreds and thousands of my people. They don't share your perspective because they reap the rewards of what this technological advance has done. What do you say to an average Afghan citizen?
Yeah, Nell, and I can't sit here and argue that, drone technology is going to be fantastic. In fact, I had a conversation this morning that I don't know, how many people realize that when the sky is sunny in Afghanistan or Iraq, people tend not to go outside because a clear sky means a clear optical view of people. I mean, that's a terrible life to live, and there's no world in which I'm going to sit here and say UAV strike technology is great for humanity and everything's going to be fantastic.
But that's what Americans would argue. That actually
perhaps Americans would argue, and I can't argue that strike drone technology is going to enfranchise peace. But I can argue that the movement of developmental technology from governments into the open source community, and the access to technology from solely governments into the open source community is a tremendous advantage. For people like you, Nell, to be able to look at the satellite imagery that was only available for the militaries 10 years ago, it puts agency in your hands, it puts agency in the hands of your countrymen that wasn't there in 2005.
Well, this is what's interesting, because you mentioned we and our hands quite a few times, but the average person here isn't going to sit and look at the Afghan, imagery coming out of Afghanistan that shows drone strikes.
Nell, give me $96, we'll call my friend Karen, and we'll both buy satellite images of any village that you want in Afghanistan. That wasn't possible several years ago. It is possible now. It was $1 billion to launch a satellite in 2005. It costs only several million now, and the imagery, there's going to be, I think within the next 2 years, there's going to be free, unfettered access to very high resolution imagery. Is this a great thing? No, but this is a much different shift of who gets to look at this information.
Who gets to decide what technology devoted to solving the world's greatest, most entrenched wars and battles and conflicts should be used in what arena of war? Whose decision is this? Because it's not ours.
It's not as much the government's anymore. It is more ours now than it was. And I'm not saying that it's perfect. I cannot sit here and say that it's perfect. But the fact that this university can start looking at things, the fact that I've worked with an organization called Bellingcat that is holding people's feet to the fire with the same resources that were only available to governments, I think is a huge advantage. And I don't think we should overlook it.
Ariel, you mentioned quite a few points that were quite intriguing to me. I want you to talk a little bit about China and then kind of the way that China has managed to use technology to surveil an entire population of people, put millions of people in concentration camps. That kind of speaks to a lot of what you were saying in direct contradiction to what Allison is saying.
So what's the question?
It's a comment. You're right, because China. But most importantly, how does China kind of show the dystopic version of what technology can do?
So I want to be careful saying too much about China because I'm definitely not an expert there. But I would say a couple of the things that concern me is that we are seeing them use things like facial recognition to violate human rights. And more than that, in many instances, they're taking technology that was developed often from the US to have other purposes, and it's being reapplied for harm.
So in fact, the real world implications of what technology can do are more harmful than they are peaceful.
Certainly in this example, yes.
Could you tell me a little bit more about some of your work, the work that you do, especially within nuclear science or within artificial intelligence, of where you've seen this kind of go along that path?
So I do a lot of work with lethal autonomous weapons, which technically haven't been developed yet, but we are already seeing a lot of these weapons applied along contentious borders in Gaza and along between the North and South Korea border. And these weapons are fairly autonomous. They do already exist, and they allow...
But why are you worried that these kind of technologies are... humanity will err towards our worst tendencies? Why do you worry that actually we will do what is the most divisive, that is the most destructive? Why do you see that as being the way that technology is used in this space?
I don't know that I would necessarily say that we would do it for the most destruction, but I do think if we look back at our own human history, we do tend to find ways to hurt other people. And technology is enabling that.
Subbu, you were nodding at both Allison and Ariel, so I want to get your perspective, because a lot of the audience seems to agree with you that we should be cautious, but I mean, at the end of the day, that's neither here nor there. We should be cautious about everything, not just technology. Where do you land on the practicality of what technology can do, not just the hypotheticals?
So I don't believe in cautiousness for the sake of cautiousness. I've been an entrepreneur. I had to run a business with investors' money, and that's like jumping into the fire. What I feel is ethical design, the role of ethics in design of technologies before they are released into the world has now started getting discussed a lot more than it was 15 years ago. And the reason for that is all the harm that comes when it goes into the hands of bad actors. Nobody ever questions the good that comes from technologies because you kind of expect it. I've seen this in India. E-governance technologies and open source technologies and transparency through local government has actually helped. And I've actually championed that cause. So I would not say caution. I would say there's enough evidence now to see what is good and what is bad, what are the bad outcomes. I nodded my head because I knew that Ariel will bring up history. There's a history in our own humanity that we have done good and we have done bad. But we know our own better angels. We know that social media platforms are making us behave to our worser angels because of the way we like and share and retweet and emotionally respond to everything that's somewhat polarizing. More polarizing behavior makes us even more polarizing. Those are difficult questions to answer.
It's almost like you're arguing Allison's case then. Do you agree with her most?
With which case?
With Allison's perspective that actually, in the grand arc of humanity, it is most likely going to be a positive thing if we involve these technologies.
No, I don't think so. And the reason for that is technology platforms.
I mean, you can tell her it's fine.
So,
she's right there.
So I don't think so, Allison, because the bad actors, so there's an arms race between bad actors and good actors. And there are different societies and different types of journeys. All societies in the world are not going through the same journey at the same time. There are democratizing societies. There are actually societies with a history of injustice, and there are societies with a history of oppression. If technology comes into all of those hands, it will not have the same types of repercussions. It's just unpredictable.
And I completely hear you, but let me propose this. I mean, every advent of a new technology, there's sort of a Wild West phase. And we were speaking about this a bit earlier. You're kind of seeing vermin come out of the woodwork with respect to the complete anonymity of everybody, for instance, on social media, leads instantaneously to being able to say something of a hate crime, right? Being able to do that. Almost everything we've ever done, transportation systems, communication systems, have had this sort of phase, this nascent phase where it was ungovernable. And it was often up to governments to regulate that. Is it better that it's now up to governments to regulate new technology, or should this be in the hands of of us? You know, so maybe yes, maybe no, but I do think that transparency does confer advantage.
Ariel, do you want to come in on this?
Yeah, I guess the one thing that I would say is I agree with the point that as when we've come out with new technologies, we see problems initially, we fix them, and then they become beneficial, and I think that's absolutely true.
Is that a price worth paying?
Well, the thing I was going to say is I think what concerns a lot of us is we're developing more advanced technology, and the risks associated with that technology are greater than they were before. These new technologies have the potential to be more harmful than, say, a car accident.
I'm going to end that section there. You've heard very eloquently our speakers put their arguments in perspective. I'd like to turn our attention to Dr. Clayton Gove. You've just been sitting there patiently. You have been listening to all of this. I've managed to rile them up and get them to disagree with one another. Can you see any opportunity for consensus? I'm going to hand things over to you for the next few minutes.
Thanks a lot, Nell. So here's the thing, right? Nell's a journalist. I think she's kind of one of the good guys, but she's a journalist nonetheless. And so what she thrives on is like binary distinctions. So this very question in itself is a kind of journalistic binary question of can technology unlock peace, which begs a yes or no answer. Whereas I kind of come from the peace industry, and so we try and move away from these binary distinctions to explore perhaps more nuanced solutions. And so really what I'd like to do now, just for a few minutes, is move into a different space and allow you the opportunity to speak into each other's understandings. So perhaps, Ariel, perhaps I'll start with yourself, because I think perhaps you offered the most bleak perspective up to this point, like really kind of doubling down on the potentially negative sides of technology. But we heard from Allison in her discussions a number of potential positive usages. So from your work, to what extent have you been able to explore that other side of the argument?
Well, quite a bit. I mean, honestly, one of the reasons that we focus so much on the potential threat of these developing technologies is because we think they can be really great. And if we can prevent the bad things from happening, humanity could flourish.
So what I'm hearing is that in a way, you share a similar level of optimism about the potential that could be there for technology, but the risk, because the threats are so great, leads you to this slightly more negative position?
Yes, I am definitely concerned. I think if we do it right, there's a hopeful future for us, but I'm definitely concerned.
So I want to come back to this question of what's right or wrong in a second. Do you want to come in there, Subbu?
I wanted to quickly comment on the most important last 3 words that Ariel said, prevent the bad things from happening. One of the things we've got to look at when we talk about technology is the funding system that funds entrepreneurship in these situations. It's called capitalism, but it's become market fundamentalism. It's become investment for exponential growth of technological solutions at any cost. So once a large company with several billion users has built an engagement metric system that is sheerly based on human beings, talking at each other with masks, it is hard for them, even when they know what the solutions are. It's not that these large companies do not know what ethical design is. May I tell you that they have the best minds working in these companies. The business metrics and the business logics are running the way they're running. So preventing bad outcomes requires starting really early, not just on the technology side, but on the economic business model side, and to also see where the business ethics of this actually plays in. And those are questions that are adjacent to technology, and we've got to also include them in our kinds of conversations.
So Allison, I see that you're nodding there. Is this a position that you get on board with as well?
That I get on board with capitalist governance of technology. Yes, I mean, there's so many examples of it recently, right? I mean, I couldn't even begin to pick just one. I do think that when technology was in the hands of the government, it was often used for military purposes, and it was driven to military purposes. But much the same way, when technology is in the hands of consumer or capitalist system, it's profit driven. And the easiest, the lowest hanging fruit is sort of what Facebook has been doing when selling information to all sorts of different organizations and purposefully manipulating people, or at least looking the other way, into trying to, when other outside forces want to involve themselves in another country's elections, for instance. So, I mean, there are thousands of examples where capitalist-governed technology is a terrible idea in the short term. I absolutely agree. I do think in the long term we have to open up the field for a lot of different people to understand technology. As Subbu said, it's important for us to get ethics in the ground floor of a lot of new technologies, and it's a tall order.
I can see now
I'm bobbing my
pop in
head
there.
vigorously because I want to get to you guys. I'm very desperate. So, Govinda, before I go to you for your final thoughts, and because I can see there is some common ground here, we are coming to some kind of an agreement. But before I come to you for the final thoughts, it's time for you guys to kind of get involved if you can. I know you've been listening intently, and what I'd like you to do, for those of you who have questions for our speakers, some point of clarification, or you just want to really get something off your chest, please make your way down. We have 2 microphones. One is just over there, and the other one is positioned over there. I encourage you to get up, ask your questions, get some clarity if you need to. There we go. We've got one person at least. I was worried about this bit. Yes, all men? Surely not. Come on, guys. Get on up. Let's get some more of you. There we go. So I'm going to ask Govinda to give us some of his final thoughts, and I'll encourage you once again to please line up to ask your questions. Govinda.
Awesome. So I think that was great the way we already injected some more nuance into the discussion. And it's clear that everybody shares a relatively common underlying interest in seeing that there's very clear threats associated with technology and also a significant amount of promise. And what I'd really love from these questions is to tease out these nuances a little bit more so we can really hear where the differences are and also where the commonalities exist.
That's really... So in fact, I am hearing that we are coming to a bit of a consensus. But before I come back to you guys, I want to throw to our audience. So we'll take a question from you first, or your comment, whatever it is that you have to say. And then we'll just go one and then the other until we get more people up.
Okay, hi. So first of all, I have 2 things. The first thing is I think before we start looking at the answer or looking for an answer for this question, we should understand what technology is. So we have 2 views of it. We have the common view as applied science, and then we have another view. It's the science and technology study view, and then they view it as a socio-technical system that involves activities and other things. But the thing is I think that technology is determined by us because according to this term social relevant groups. So as groups we can I
You can finish.
All right. So like different groups attach different meanings to the same piece of technology. So I think that like we can attach like different like meanings to the same piece of technology, and it's like our decision
That's
to do
really
that.
interesting. So I will come to you guys, but let's just get a few more questions in before we do that.
Can I get the second thing?
I would love to give other people more time, but we will come back. So there's plenty of time for this. We'll come back to you. Let's just get a comment or question from this side. Yes.
Thank you. I'll make this brief. So my suggestion or question would treating technology as a dual-use material, just like in customs, would be beneficial to bring all the ideas together to a consensus on how do we use and regulate, and who is to regulate technology. Is it the entrepreneurs or the governments? Can we do that? Is it viable or not? So this is my question. Thank
Thank you very much. Let's ask a very basic question. Is anyone regulating this? And if so, who should? Allison?
Right now, yeah, there is no clear regulation of technology. There's no two ways about it. The US government regulates the technology that I am involved with, but right now they can only regulate the American companies. The American companies are being surpassed by international companies. It's impossible to regulate it, and then the entrepreneurs probably have a bit more hold over a lot of things, and I wouldn't recommend that either. So it's an excellent question.
Ariel, what do you think about that? That's a really important point and quite fundamental to your perspective.
So something I want to say, and I might actually, I don't know if I'm moving into Subbu's territory here, but one of the ways that I look at technology is actually as an amplification of the person or people who are using it. So rather than looking at it as this thing, this entity that's separate from us, how is it us becoming something more? And I don't know if that actually helps address either of the questions.
Subbu, surely there's got to be a point when we stop looking to the people next to us to try and figure out how technology should be regulated, specifically within the arena of war and peace, and we should have some sort of system. How can you be cautiously optimistic when the stakes are so high?
So if you look at cars, we got seat belts because without seat belts, harm is done. We die, other people die. So in most of the safety-based regulation mechanisms, harm was measurable, inflicted harm is known, and so regulatory mechanisms will kick in. In social media-based informational harm, we haven't even caught up with what is harm. How do you measure division? How do you measure the impact of hate speech and disinformation and actual conspiracy theory in a way that scientists and regulators will even agree? Before regulation can catch up, it needs to have metrics and actual measurement. We haven't reached there, but these companies, because of their excessive use of exponential growth, have just built themselves out. Now when you come and talk about regulation, in different countries there are different philosophies of government. In America, if you use the word regulation for social media, you'll get shot down for being a socialist. In the UK, maybe people will be somewhat more forgiving. In India, they will say, okay, let the government do something, but regulatory power by
Allison,
the government will be abused.
Yeah, Subbu, I agree with you, but originally it was very difficult to measure how many people were dying from seatbelt-related injuries, right? And I think it would be I think you are absolutely right. It's a very important step for us to measure the harm that's being conducted by social media, but I think the tools are absolutely there to do that.
Govinda, can I just come to you really quickly as our connector? I hear consensus there. We all agree that regulation is one of the most important aspects of how peace tech can work for the good or for the ill. You seem to be winning this, mate. How do you think that this idea of regulation and who's in charge of it, why is that such a fundamental question when we're talking about conflict and negotiation?
Yeah, that's a great question, actually. So in conflict resolution, often we focus initially on kind of like the why and getting some kind of agreement on what's the issue we want to resolve. When things get really hard is when you get to the kind of how. And so it seems here there's consensus among all of our speakers that we absolutely need to regulate and that there needs to be some movement towards thinking differently about technology, but how we do that is clearly very controversial.
I'm going to take
of course.
I'm going to take two more questions, you very quickly, and then we'll move on to the gentleman over there.
Hi. So you mentioned both ethics and history. So since war has been happening since the dawn of civilization itself, we know that ethics are a hard thing to essentially come up with in a holistic way. But so technology has benefits and it has harm, and we've established that. But if we go from a bird's eye perspective, can we say that technology actually enables people to partake in the development of those universal ethics, which would eventually or potentially lead to peace? And we can see that with more accountability and so on.
A very interesting perspective. You've thought about this, haven't you? Yes, you have. The gentleman over there.
So as technology becomes more advanced, a lot of services will become autonomous and many people will lose their jobs. So what do you think of that?
That's two very interesting questions. Thank you, gentlemen. I'll start with you, only because you're near me.
Well, I really like the idea that as we develop technology, we'll be able to have more people involved in the ethics debate and be able to establish better ethics. I'm actually very hopeful that that is what will happen. And regarding jobs, I'm very concerned about jobs.
Who else on our panel is concerned about? Just raise your hands if you're... Yes. Subbu, do you want to comment about jobs, about the idea of automation and jobs?
Oh, absolutely. I am concerned about jobs. But I have a response to this gentleman's question. It's very interesting how you framed the question. You're turning the use of technology on its head. You're saying, can technology be used to develop ethical consciousness overall, as opposed to releasing technology out into the world and then battling the crisis after it's come? This is a hard one because if you look at ethics, it's about right and wrong. It's a slower conversation. Ethics is usually deliberative. People come together and discuss rights and wrong from multiple types of moral standards: fairness, justice, virtues, rights. And it's not easy to say use technology in that service unless you accommodate conversations that are deliberative and participative and bring lots of people with different histories into a conversation and then build out what the regulation
Ariel?
might be. That is hard to do, but if it's designed well, then what you aspire to, my dear young man, is actually possible. Thank you for asking.
Ariel, very quickly.
Yeah, I just want to add, I think technology is precisely what enables us to bring those diverse voices together, and that's what I'm hopeful about.
In a way, come back to the mic really quickly. I wonder, in a way, is what you're saying that technology is forcing us to interrogate things that we've never really considered, certain ethical perspectives like, how should a sentinel kill someone? Where is that line? How do we decide what is an intelligent, what intelligence is and not? Is that kind of what you're getting to?
Along with that, it also lets more people do it. So before, not a lot of people could do it, and now a lot more people have agency to actually ask those
Very
questions.
interesting. I want to keep things moving because we've got some young ladies at the mics now. Please, tell me what you're thinking.
Okay, so given that technology is more of a means to an end, how could we change our social systems to ensure a higher possibility of more positive outcomes?
And the gentleman in the red shirt?
Yes, sir. So, as she said that government is regulating the all AI technology and all the things. So right now in China, as we all know that facial recognition is there. And in India, there is another thing, UPI. So government have all the data of and all the information of people. And Snowden once said that UPI is not, it will be harmful.
What's a UPI? I don't know.
UPI is identity for a person. They have the fingerprints and eyes.
Biometrics?
Biometrics and all the details.
So your question?
My question is, how can we believe that government is regulating that and we are safe,
Who's that question to before we address that? Who's that question to?
My question is for, her,
Allison,
actually.
Go ahead.
Sorry, fantastic question. Again, I think that we should probably incorporate or at least consider debating our societies as a whole, right? Is society good enough to be able to regulate technology? I'm Generation X, and I actually grew up in the 1990s where there was a pretty long continuous period of peacetime, and there have been times where I felt very optimistic about technology. In fact, when the internet and social media first came out, it was like, let's all connect together and we're going to know about each other. I agree with you on China. What's happening in China is terrifying. I cannot argue that this is okay. If forced to find a silver lining, I still do believe that we are in a wild west where things have to be regulated. I believe that globally, we are a lot more connected today to each other. I understand problems that are happening in countries that I did not know existed when I was growing up. I do believe that in our nascent stages, there's just going to be a lot of chaos, but I believe ultimately, the fact that I know what's happening in your world and you know what's happening in my world is going to be better for us all.
Govinda?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a similar dynamic that we see kind of playing out here, that there's a lot of agreement between each of our speakers on the kind of morality and on the areas where we need certain actions. Where I'd like to hear perhaps a little bit more from you all is the specifics in terms of what that might look like.
Subbu, do you want to take that up, or should I take some more questions?
On the young woman's question, I don't see her here anymore. I appreciate her framing the question the way she did. How do you make the means to an end actually come into being? Because it's very easy to talk about means and ends. One of the challenges in the market system that is used to develop technology is each player is out to themselves for their shareholders to grow their company. Now, ethical behavior, ethical decision making, and design is actually a shared burden. It is not Facebook's own problem that conspiracy theories are actually spreading. It is not Twitter's own problem. It's not Reddit's own problem. It is a common problem with platform technology as an example. So the burden of means to an end, how to make it happen and how to restrain the bad outcomes and encourage the good outcomes is not a market insistence on the company. These companies can actually work together, and they are beginning to work together. That's the good news. But we need more of that so that the burden can be shared, and that incentivizes that behavior even more.
I'm going to be a journalist just for a second and just chime in and say, governments, these gigantic unicorn social media companies, I don't know which I trust more or less, frankly, and I'm not sure that if we, thank you very much, sir, if we give our faith and trust and allegiance to Facebook, that we're going to do any better than if we give it to a military within the within America. So let's move to you, the lady in the white coat.
Hi, my question's for the computer scientist. This year is my first year as a computer science student, and I learned that the internet is not really owned by anybody, and technology is not really owned by anybody. It may be governed and it may be developed by certain entities, but it's not owned by anybody. So my question is, do you believe there is any method to control the approach people take to technology? You said that the approach people can take can alter our consensus to the debate. So do you believe there's any way we can control that? Do any human rights regulate that? Or can there be any laws made?
Are there any existing laws or any future laws? Just one question over here, and we'll go back here before we...
Okay, so my question's for Miss Ariel. So could we really say that artificial intelligence could cause our downfall, especially when you consider recent developments such as artificial intelligence for diagnostic technology in the medical field, like how they're currently making artificial intelligence for diagnosing tumors or helping people find out what's wrong with them.
Yeah. Yes, exactly. So I want, Ariel, keep that in mind. We're just going to go one more question with the gentleman.
God. Okay.
In fact, where is your traditional dress from? Where are you?
I'm from the Kingdom of Swaziland.
There we go.
Eswatini.
Very good. What is your question, sir?
It's not really a question, it's more of a statement. I'd sort of just say that there's sort of like a problem with just assuming that there's absolute risk with technology in terms of world peace, because if you think of something such as IVF, a bunch of people are thinking that there are a lot of risks and that we shouldn't actually think about development of that technology. So I'd sort of see that there's a very strong parallel between our association of risk and basically what we think is possible with the technology.
Interesting. That's a very interesting observation. Before we come to you, who do we have a question? Your question was directed to the engineer on stage, computer scientist.
So I'm a journalist and media person and in applied ethics, but I started my life as a computer science engineer. So there is a new project called the Responsible Computer Science Project in America, where 17 major universities are working together to change the computer science curriculum, undergrad level, to introduce ethics in the teaching itself, without touching computer science, without diluting computer science. It's absolutely algorithms, it's absolutely machine learning, absolutely data science. And the fact that this project is even going on in the US for 17 major universities is in 2019, and my university is actually one of them, and I'm one of the leaders in SCU, is an indication of where computer science is really going. It's not CS anymore, it's RCS, Responsible Computer Science. So this is a new frame. We don't have all the answers yet. You asked a really good question. We don't have all the answers yet. But I want to make one small correction. There is private ownership of software. Open source software is free. Open source software is the space that she actually is from. It's all free. It's clear there's no ownership. There's only a license to use and distribute. But there is a lot of software that's owned by individual firms all the time.
Ariel, the question that was directed to you from the young lady over there.
Yeah, so actually, I think what I'm about to say also addresses his point as well. And that goes back to what I said earlier, where the reason we're focusing on the risks, especially posed by AI, is because we think AI can do so many amazing things for us. And we want to pave the way to enable more technological development in that direction.
That's really interesting. And do you want to get in on this, Allison? Because I just want to remind people how much we've achieved in the brief time that we've been talking. We now understand the importance of regulation and a framework for regulating peace technology and technology in general. We agree on that. We also agree that there should be questions asked. Doesn't matter what they are, but we have to ask questions in order to figure out what we collectively feel about this. Those are definitely things, Govinda, that I'm sure you've noticed that we seem to all agree on. And I wonder if you guys do too. So before we get to our next vote, I want to take a couple of more questions. My lines are running a bit thin. Is there anyone else that wants to get up and ask a question or two? That's right. There we go. You can certainly give a response to the gentleman.
I appreciate your question on how you asked. All technologies are just not the same. There's one fundamental division between where social media and AI is going, and that's what I call fast tech. Normal technology, which is slowly built, developed, tested, and actually released, where you know what the harms are, the risks, and the actual positive benefits, there's a different development process that we as humans have actually become better at. Fast technology is making the brain think really fast. We're doing everything so quickly. Click, 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 and share. We don't even know what we're reading before we share it. That technology is called fast technology, and most of the neuroscientists already agree that it's toying with our brain. So we have more problems on that side, and that's why AI is a worry.
So I've just been told that I've actually overrun because this is my favorite bit. So I'm going to get, thank you, sir. I'm going to get two more questions. The lady who's very patiently been waiting with a scarf, and the young lady in the red scarf.
Thank you. Pardon my voice. I just caught a cold, but I'll be very quick with this. So I just want to bring attention to the fact that we're talking about world peace with technology. What I understand from our discussion so far is if you're trying to regulate, we're already in this room itself having millions of different thoughts, different cultures coming in together, age-related differences, so many differences just in this room. And when you're talking about the world, how do you think we will not create a technology war when we're discussing regulations?
I just wanted to comment on the universal access of technology. How can we unlock world peace when we still have less than half of the world with access to the internet? And will power be handled fairly, or will HICs take over and take all the power?
I wish we had several hours because you guys have been queuing very patiently. I'm afraid we're nearly running out of time, but please remember, these guys are obligated to stay behind for the reception, so you can definitely corner them when we have our reception and take your comments and questions to them. Before we close up this Majlis part of our debate, I'd love for our panel to briefly address those seismic, huge questions that we've just had. Allison.
Could you, would you please repeat your question very quickly? I'm a little scintillated. Go ahead.
I just want to know, how do you think a conversation between the world for regulating technology would go?
So many different cultures, thoughts, opinions in this room alone. How are you going to get consensus globally?
How can we expect to have peace through technology? Okay, allow me to be the hopeless optimist here. Imagine what my childhood was like, or my teenagehood was like in the early 1990s, before the internet, a few years before the internet, a few years of social media. Can you tell me that we're not more connected now with people all over the world than we were in 1992, right? I believe, in short, that we are just beginning to see the chaos in the world, and I believe that's part of a continuum that'll allow us to come to a consensus together. Again, I know I'm a hopeless optimist, but I believe that.
That's why you're here, Allison. Subbu, go ahead.
So I think this is good for a debate and discussion on the principles, this kind of framing. The kind of question you're asking, anyway, not all technologies and not all regulation about technologies are the same. So those have to be not one conversation in the first place. There have to be multiple conversations in all the countries of the world with the appropriate regulatory authorities taking public input all the time. So there needs to be a democratic approach to actually taking consensus where bad actors don't actually hijack that. That is hard to do, but it's important that these things happen in multiple conversations across all of the different types of technology.
Ariel, do you want to address either of those questions before?
Yeah, I want to say that I am still hopeful, and I've already said this, that we can use technology to bring more diverse voices together. Now, to your point that there's a lot of voices out there that aren't connected yet, that's true. And it's just going to take time, I think. I mean, I think we need to recognize that that's a problem and focus on fixing it. And try to use technology to get these voices to the table.
Because here's the thing that I agree with you, Govinda, which is very rare occurrence anyway. We have the United Nations. That was an achievement in itself. Think about it. The first time that globally, I mean, they're obviously partnered with us, so I'm obviously a fan. But think about it, like the United Nations, this idea that all of the globe's all of the planet's countries come together and try and figure things out. Some of the most difficult, most challenging things on Earth, and we did manage to do that. So, I mean, I think we agree that something like, if the UN is possible, something like some sort of internet or technology protocol.
Totally. I mean, I actually think it's a really fantastic question. It's saying, like, how can we create this dialogue and this discussion? And that's something we don't have an answer to yet. It's absolutely part of the problem, is thinking about, well, how can we create platforms and structures and organizations in which we can begin this discussion and dialogue on the different types of issues, as Subbu said.
Thank you, Govinda. Thank you to our speakers. And thank you mostly to our people who asked the questions. Can we give them a round of applause? Thanks. So, we're nearing the end of this event, and before we do, of course, it's time to get another vote, because these lot are competitive and they want to win yours. Before we do that, though, I'd like you to once again, please turn to your neighbor and discuss with them how you're going to vote this time. Remember, if you've changed your mind, if your perspective has been shifted, we welcome that and we encourage it. So for the next minute, please turn to your neighbor and discuss how you feel now. Go. All right, I'm calling your attention once again to the front of the stage. If you finish up your conversations and focus on the stage, we'll be ready to get the second vote in. There's just a heated debate right here. This seems to be raging, and Are you ready, sir? Thank you. So, as we wrap up our Majlis, and we thank our speakers, and we thank you guys, it's time for the second vote. Now, remember, if you are allowed to change your mind. This isn't some kind of tribal thing, so feel free to do so. On the count of three, I will ask you guys to raise your cards, but before I do, I'm going to once again tell you what the different positions are. Allison holding the blue card. She thinks that technology can one day broker world peace, and we must, as she says, be hopeful. Subbu holding the orange card wants us to be cautious. There is a way forward, but we have got to ask the right questions. And Ariel seems to be urging humanity to do what's right, but we have to make sure that everyone is involved in the conversation. So, on the count of three, I'm going to ask you to raise the card that you most agree with. 1, 2, 3. Again, because I am the arbiter and the master of ceremonies, I get to decide who wins. Oh, this is tricky. I can see we've got real pockets of consensus, actually. So, all right, these guys are having... All right, cards down. No, I want the red... So I think we can conclude that, Subbu, your perspective has been the most compelling. You guys seem to think absolutely we should hurtle towards innovation and technology and peace, but we should do it with a very strong dose of caution. So well done, Subbu, for presenting your case. Thank you guys for voting and having that discussion. We are nearly at the end of the show. The results have been really interesting, but I want to do something a little different. And we don't often do this, but this is so important to me and what it means to be part of Doha Debates. Raise your hand if you changed your mind. If you've changed your mind, raise your hand. Wow. Right up so I can see you. Okay. Now, keep it up if you'll tell me why. I've got a couple of people with mics. Thank you very much. I respect you. Keep it up. Come on, I want to see it. I've got a couple of my team with mics. Where are you guys? Okay, let's go to the lady with the white hijab on, and then we'll go to the young lady here. If we can give the mic to the lady with the black shirt and the glasses, and then we'll come directly to you, madam. But this lady here in the second row, she's got glasses on. Yeah, we'll give it. Yes, you. Why did you change your mind? What helped you shift your perspective?
So I have a career in technology, and I used to believe that AI is going to change the world. But now I work in media, and I realize what fake news can do to harm humanity. So I've changed my mind because now I think of technology as power, and we should treat it the same way we treat power, and regulate it the same way we regulate power. Thank you.
Very interesting. Very good. Yes, definitely. Thank you. Thank you for sharing. The young lady sat on the second row, please.
First of all, well done for presenting your cases. I really liked it. I shifted from Mrs. Subbu's opinion closer to Ms. Ariel's opinion because initially I believe that, yes, tech should be given to people and you should be cautious. But the way Ms. Ariel presented things, I liked how she pointed out how things can be used, the tech can be used in a negative way, and we should be more cautious towards it. And I do think now that regulation should be placed more to technology.
That's very interesting. Raise your hands once again if you've changed your perspective, just so I can see you. Okay, we've got a mic over here. We've got another mic. Anyone? Oh, you're really, really keen to get your point across. We'll come to you. But that is really interesting how you've actually become a little more cautious, is what you're saying. We have to be very careful because human beings are the most complicated of all machines, frankly. Please.
Yeah, I also became more optimistic during the discussion when I realized that world peace cannot be isolated from quality of life. So technology has enabled us to have a much better life, which increases the psychological cost of wars. So 150 years ago, a family tends to have 12 kids with 3 of them surviving to adulthood. And now we have 1 to 3 kids and we are documenting their losing every tooth. It's very different cost.
We do live in different times, thank goodness. So thank you for sharing. Yes, let's give her a round of applause. Thank you very much for sharing to both of you. Where are those hands? I've got maybe 2 more that I can take. We've got a gentleman over here, Mohammed, who might want to ask a question. There we go. 1 more person who wants to share why they changed their perspective or reflect on what they've heard. Anyone else? Oh, we've got 4 now. The lady at the back, right at the back. I can't see her, but there she is, yes. Please, go ahead.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you. I just got an idea today by listening to you. So we had always problem with peace throughout the history, and there were many scholars who worked on ethical ideologies, but we couldn't find the solution with ethical ideologies. But we didn't have technologies at that time, but we have still the problem with peace. And the thing is, we just have to use the technology. We are saying the technologies, but we are not saying the technology that's specialized for finding the solution for peace. And the thing is, the argument is 2 + 2 = 4. We all accept this because it's general idea. And if I say China is violating in somewhere, you do not accept this idea. I have no doubt, because we are a human, we always do not try to agree with each other. But if the math, the technology is a specific, 2 + 2 = 4, we all accept it, and we have to use this part of technology, I mean the science, to give the solution for people to accept.
Very good.
Yeah.
Very good. Very optimistic perspective, I like it. And very finally, the young lady, if you could stand up and tell us your thoughts. No, I can't hear. There we go.
Okay. When I came, my mind was locked on the one word, unlock world peace. I was like, technology cannot unlock world peace. We need human feelings and human emotions and human sentiments to unlock world peace. But when you said we should turn to someone by our side and get their reason, what they're going to vote and their reason, so my very brilliant colleague, he gave me a perspective that changed my mind. That technology, it is one of the important tools that can facilitate world peace. And in the course of the debate, I remember that my colleagues, Danish and Martin, they had shared an article on the future of artificial intelligence and waging war on humans. And I ran back to the article to read it, and my mind completely changed because they gave really strong points. Like artificial intelligence can, it breaks language barriers.
So if I'm hearing you correctly, this Majlis has helped, and the discussion you've been having has actually been very helpful to you in learning and changing your perspective, which really is what we're here to do. Can we just get a massive round of applause for the lady at the back? That, unfortunately, brings us to the end of this very special event. We'll be doing plenty more of this style of debating about different subjects. So to that end, please leave your voting cards where they were, because we would like to reuse them. We're trying to save the planet, one cardboard at a time. And remember, guys, that you can always follow us. We're doing a myriad of different things, from making digital films through to our live debates, and the podcast will hopefully be launching next year. So follow us on our socials. We are at Doha Debates all over the place, Instagram, YouTube, and everywhere else. It just gives me enough time to thank very much our partners, UNESCO, Qatar, and the United Nations DPPA, I'm losing my mind now, Innovation Cell. A massive thank you to you guys for helping and partnering with us. Thank you to Carnegie Mellon University as well for facilitating all of this. We really couldn't have done it without them. And a personal thank you from me to my wonderful Doha Debates team, who have put all of this on in less time than you can imagine. Very finally, thank you to our speakers. And to you for coming, for giving us an hour of your time. Hopefully, we walk out of here with a changed mind and with the ability to listen to one another. And with that, I'd like to draw close to the evening. Good night.